Chapter 4 Flawed Founding Fathers, 1776 to 1787. Learning about the history of racism means discovering that some people, even some who you may have considered heroes, were deeply flawed individuals who had racist thoughts and did racist things. It can feel crushing. Oof. But hey, it's not easy being a truth seeker. But here's the thing. Knowing the truth of the past helps you understand the truth of today and to make different choices, to stamp out racist ideas and embrace anti-racist ones. Which brings us to Thomas Jefferson. In 1776, America was doubling down on owning people, but didn't want to be owned by Great Britain. Talk about a contradiction. And speaking of contradiction, no one was more wishy-washy than Thomas Jefferson. You've probably heard of Jefferson. He's the guy that wrote the Declaration of Independence, America's freedom document, which stated that all men are created equal. But were enslaved people seen as men? And what about women? Was he talking about freedom for everyone? Or just for America, from England? And what did it mean that anti-racist portions of the Declaration, like where Jefferson called slavery a cruel war against human nature, were edited out of the final document? It's confusing enough to make your head spin. In fact, when it came to black people, Jefferson's thoughts were often confusing. The man who wrote America's freedom document also owned more than 600 enslaved people throughout his life, and wrote a book in which he said that black people were unequal to white people. His actions and ideas were racist. In fact, most of the Founding Fathers, the leaders who determined how America as a country would be run, enslaved people and expressed racist ideas even as they fought for their own freedom from Britain. Eventually, after years of fighting against the British, America did break free of their control. It came out of the Revolutionary War needing a stronger government. So the founders wrote a new constitution. And guess what was baked right into this constitution? Racist ideas. Here's one example. The Founding Fathers tried to figure out how much power each state would have in the government. We call this representation. They decided that the number of people representing a state would be based in part on how many people lived in that state. Bigger states with more people liked this idea because they wanted more of a say in the government. Imagine a class with more students being able to pick what the cafeteria serves for lunch. You want crinkle cut fries, but the bigger class says, nope, we're eating curly. That would be pretty scary, right? Well, the same fear was felt by smaller states because they felt their needs would be ignored. And what about the states in the South that had more enslaved people than states in the North? If enslaved people were counted as people, the Southern states would certainly be set up to have a bigger voice in government. The Northern states saw right through this. Since enslaved people were owned and treated as property, why should they suddenly count as human beings? The Founding Fathers decided to compromise. This agreement involved a fraction. Each enslaved person would not count as a complete, whole human being. Instead, they'd count as 3/5 of a person. So, just to do the math, 5 enslaved people would equal 3 white people. Southern states agreed because they would still get a little more representation and power in the government. Northern states agreed because Southern states wouldn't get as much power as they might have if enslaved people counted as people instead of fractions. Assimilationists and segregationists were satisfied because it fit right into the argument that black people were not fully human. Crinkle and curly and racism for all. Math was used as a weapon against black people, and this agreement allowed slavery and racist ideas to be stamped permanently into the Constitution of America. Let's pause. While there were people working to justify slavery, there were people who fought against it. Racist voices overpowered anti-racist ones. Yet black people have always resisted and fought against racist ideas. Hold on to this. Let's unpause.